How's it going, everybody? This is BeatTheBush. Today I'm going to talk about myths about utilization ratios. Oftentimes you'll hear of other people saying you should keep your utilization as low as possible, no more than 30% or something. I actually don't know where people got 30% from, but what I recommend is either keep it at 0% or 100%. Do I look like I'm kidding? Credit score is serious business. You see, saying you should always keep your utilization below 30% is kind of like saying you should always drive at 55 miles an hour on the freeway. Sometimes, yes, you would want to go 55 miles an hour. Other times, maybe you should go a little faster. But you definitely shouldn't be driving 55 when it's snowing, right? So where should you keep your utilization ratio? Should you keep it at 0%, 30%, 100%, 65.8%? The answer is it depends. The higher your utilization ratio, the lower your score would be, of course. However, if you keep your utilization always at 30% or lower, your credit card issuer is going to say, hey, you don't really need that much credit, so your total credit limit is not going to rise all that fast. What I recommend for people that have regular spending that's actually higher than their limit is actually to use the credit card all the way up to 100%. Your credit score depends on a whole bunch of different factors, and each one is weighted differently. Your utilization ratio is worth a big chunk right here. 30% of it is your credit score. 35% of it is your payment history. It's if you're on time or not. 15% is your credit age, which is the average age of all your credit lines. 10% is the types of credit you have. So if you have a mortgage, car loans that's paid off, student loans that's paid off, personal loans, self-lending loans, then the more of those you have, the higher percentage you're gonna get here. Another 10% is new credit. So if you have too many new credits, you're gonna start to shrink this 10% down to 0. So if you don't have any new credit for several years, then you're gonna get the full points on here. A typical FICO score is out of 850 points. Your utilization ratio is 30% of your score. That means you can get 255 points maximum if you have perfect utilization ratio. Now, what's perfect? It's 0 utilization ratio. I made up this formula which should roughly track your utilization ratio and the contribution of points to your total credit score. Your utilization ratio points is really 255 times 1 minus the credit used divided by total credit limit. The credit used is whatever you owe on your credit cards that is reported to the credit bureau right on the statement date. The total credit limit is the total limit across all your credit cards if you have more than one. You can see here if your utilization ratio is 0 divided by 1,000, 1 minus that is 1 times 255. You're gonna get the full points of 255. Now, however, let's say you max out your credit cards and you spent $1,000 out of the total $1,000 limit that you have. So your utilization ratio is going to be 255 times 1 minus 1,000 divided by 1,000, which is 1 right here. So this is 0. And so this whole thing is 0. So you're going to get 0 points out of 255. Then you're going to get a really low score because 850 minus 255 is roughly 595. That's a really low score. People have been mentioning 30% or less utilization ratio. Now you're gonna see what happens here. 30% out of $1,000 limit is actually $300 spending. 1 minus 0.3 is 0.7. So you're gonna end up getting only 178.5 points out of the 255 that you could have gotten. Yes, if you use your credit all the way up to 100% of your limit, it will temporarily reduce your credit score a little bit. However, the point here is to force your credit card issuer to give you a higher credit by demonstrating that, yes, you can pay it all off. So you spend it all the way up to 100, you pay it all off, and you do that a few months, and before you know it, your credit card is gonna say, hey, oh my gosh, this guy, they're using a lot of credit and they're paying it off. They're generating a lot of revenue for us. Then they're gonna increase your limit. They might double it or triple it even. So if you don't need your credit score for a while, this is a really great way to increase your total limit very, very fast. You can even run your credit card all the way up to 100% and then pay it all off right before your statement date. Therefore, you can get the best of both worlds where you can force a total limit increase several months down the line and you zero out your utilization ratio. So your credit score will not be impacted when you're doing this maxing out for several months. Now, you might get to a point where your total spending, it's not going to reach your total credit limit. In that case, let's say you spend only 80% or 90%, but if you keep on doing that, they're gonna get double your total credit limit again because they see that you're spending way too close to your limit and they don't like that. They wanna give you more credit so that you have more room to spend. Then it might drop down to 50% and you have twice as much credit limit as you need. And if you just keep on spending month to month and paying it off every month, they're going to increase your total limit really fast. You're just gonna double it and then double it some more. So once it reaches to a point where your total credit limit is maybe, let's say, 10 times of your regular spending, then you don't really care about your utilization ratio, and you don't even have to do the boost trick anymore, because the total utilization ratio, even on your total spend amount, is only 10%. Let's say you spend $1,000 normally and your total credit limit reaches to, let's say, $10,000. Even if you spend $1,000 a month on a $10,000 credit limit, eventually they're going to double this. It's gonna increase pretty quickly, and then it's gonna be 5% utilization ratio. You see where this is going. They're just gonna increase your limit so that even your regular spending, it's going to be a very tiny portion of your utilization ratio. And when it gets to this point, you don't have to do any boosting trick, and yet you can still get the full points from 30% of your credit score, and you'll get the maximum points in that category already. So I hope this explains a lot. I know a lot of people have asked me about the utilization ratio, where you have to use it 100% is really counterintuitive. So I hope this video explains all of this. If you're interested in supporting this channel, don't forget to check out my Audible link down in the video description below, where you can get a free audiobook, and if you cancel before the trial period ends, you won't have to pay a thing, and you can still keep the audiobook for free, and you can still help benefit this channel. Don't forget to check out my Patreon link over here and subscribe. Thanks for watching.